Hello guys and welcome back. So now we're going to start creating the emitter, and I'm going to start by creating a circle. I'm going to change it to ZX, and I'm going to change it to polygon and have 6 points. And I want to use these 6 points to basically shoot particles out. And I'm going to use an add node to delete geometry by key points. And we need to randomize the position a little bit, so I'm going to add a jitter. It's probably too much. Something like that, and then I'm going to add a transform to zero out the Y position. Cool. So I'm going to use a pop network and use these points to shoot particle outward. But right now I don't have a velocity vector, and an easy way that I generally do to basically specify where these points should go to is to add a transform node. Okay, and then I'm going to use the scale and then move this up, and I'm going to compute a vector between this position and this current position and the alt position, and use that vector as the velocity, and that way when I pass it to pop, it's going to basically move along this path. Okay, so I'm going to use a wrangle, attribute wrangle, and here there is this preset for fetching second attribute from fetching attributes from the second input, so I'm going to use that. I don't need all this comments. And instead of fetching the CD, I'm going to use P. I want the position of the points from the second input. I'm going to call that pause. And then my velocity is going to be the difference between the current position and the pause, which is the second. Let's call it second position, just to be clear. Okay, now if we take a look, let's connect this guy, and if we take a look at the velocity, we should have a vector pointing to the right direction. Now it's pointing in the wrong direction and it's too low, so I'm gonna multiply it by 100 by negative 100, so we have much stronger velocity and it's flipped now. And let's use that. If we hit play, we should see our points shooting upward. Let's make sure we set this to use all points. Now if we hit play, cool, so they're shooting outward. And if we take a look at the at this guy, let's template both of them and then take a look here. We should see the points moving exactly from that from the second position, so the velocity is working using the vector between this and this. Okay, so the next thing is I want to change the birth to only happen once. I don't want them to continuously keep emitting, so I'm going to set the impulse activation to $FF equal to 1 equal to 1. Because it's an expression, and I'm going to change the emission to negative. That way we don't let's change this to backward as well and use the velocity vector. Cool. Okay, so now we should have points shooting outward, and let's add some gravity so they start falling down. Cool. So if we trail these points now, we should see an interesting path that curves as the points gets further in the sim. So let's increase this to 200. Let's hit play. And they are starting to curve, but they're not. The gravity, the force is too strong probably, so we'll change that to have them to have them fall sooner. Let's go down here and let's lower the velocity from this guy. Cool, so now they're falling sooner. But you can see that they're all lined up. We only have 5 streams, and this is not going to be very interesting. I want them to start big, start packed, and then as they get older, I want this guy to split into multiple other sources as well. And this is visually is going to be much more interesting and more complex to look at. So the idea for that is I'm going to create another circle, and I'm going to set this same orientation, and I'm going to scatter some points. Actually, I'm going to set the size to 0, and I'm going to scatter 10 points. And they're all, actually let's set this to 1 so we can see them. Okay, we'll leave it at 1. And the idea is I want to copy these points onto these guys. So let me lower this to 0.05 so we have something really small. And then I'm gonna use a copy to points. I'm gonna copy this into these points. Cool, so now we have multiple points packed on top of each other, on top of these guys, sorry. And then we're going to use that as the source. So we're going to emit from all these points instead of just one. And let me orient them properly. So to do that, we need 2 things. We need the up vector to be specified, and that's going to be positive in the Y direction. And then the normal is going to be facing the Z direction. That's what the copy sop uses for its alignment. And that should make the group of points aligned. Cool, so let's use this and let's take a look at what we have. If we hit play, cool, so now we have a group of points, and they're all traveling at the same speed, so we don't get any variation or anything like that. And I want to introduce that. So the idea is we're going to create a randomized attribute before randomize the attribute at each of these points, and then use that to multiply the velocity afterwards. So let's create a random attribute. I'm going to call this mult, and it's going to be a float that goes between 0.7 and 1. And then I'm going to use a wrangle and multiply the velocity. So after we fetch the velocity from here, because it gets transferred from this point onto these guys, so each of these points now inherits the velocity from the main input, and then I want to multiply that by the mult. So multiply equal mult. Let's put the @ sign, and now we should see variation between the velocity of each point. Let's take a look. Let's take a look here first. Cool. So now if we trail them, we should see them start packed, and then as they get older, as they get through the sim, they're going to start getting further apart from each other. And this is the effect we are looking at. We're looking for to create. Now in the scatter here, in the circle, I'm going to change this to 0. I want just 10 points stacked on top of each other, and now we should see straight lines emitted, and then as they get older, they're going to start separating. Cool, so that's the effect that I want. And this is going to be much more interesting to use as a source. And in the next video, we're going to process this further to make it, to generate more points that we can process them easily to inject into our sim. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.